Hello Internet! Today I thought I would go through a problem involving plugging values into a radical function. This particular problem comes from OpenStax Intermediate Algebra textbook, particularly section 8.7. This is exercise 351. And thank you again to OpenStax for making freely available textbooks. If you haven't already checked out OpenStax, you really should. It's a pretty sweet organization. They basically make free textbooks available. But anyway, so this particular problem is out of Intermediate Algebra Section 8.7. This is exercise 351. So what it asks us is to basically find the function values at f of 5 and f of 0 of this radical function, f of x equals the square root of 4x minus 4. So if you've already dealt with function notation a little bit, this really isn't a whole lot different. Basically, we're plugging in this value in for x, and we're getting an output from that. So let's go through it, I guess. So for part A here, f of 5 would be square root of 4 times 5 minus 4. And I always tend to advise students to go ahead and put the value you're inputting in its own set of parentheses and leave everything else that was there originally the same, unchanged. You can kind of think of this x here as like, whenever I see an x, I think of it as an empty container that could accept a value, and that then when I'm putting a value in, it becomes an empty set of parentheses, which then the value goes into. That's kind of a good way to think about it. At least that's how I think about it. So anyway, let's continue on here. The next step would be pretty simple. Follow the rules for order of operation here. 4 times 5 is 20, I think. 4 times 5. Pardon me. Yep, 20. And then that, I'm just going to do it this way for now. Generally, I don't like doing it this way, but I'll just do it this way for now. Okay, so f of 5 equals the square root of, what did it end up being? It ended up being 16, okay? Square root of 16. So we can do that on our calculator here, if we don't already know that it's 4. Okay, so f of 5 is equal to 4. So that's part A finished. There's no need to check this really unless we really wanted to. I'm not immediately seeing a way we could check it. We didn't use any squaring to in other words, to rip radicals off or anything. So this is fine. So now let's do the other part B here. So we're asked to find f of 0. So f of 0 equals square root of 4, and then that x becomes a set of empty parentheses. So we're going to put in something here. What are we going to put in? Well, we're going to put in this, whatever that is. And then minus 4. So now to follow the rules for order of operations, f of 0 equals 4 times 0. What's that? Well, that's going to be 0 minus 4. So what's 0 minus 4? Well, it's negative 4. So f of 0 equals the square root of negative 4. Now, the question I have for you is, does that even make any sense? And if you're way ahead in the textbook and you've already, gone through imaginary numbers, well, good for you. But for those who haven't ever heard of imaginary numbers yet, you'll get to it maybe at the end of the textbook if your course goes that far. But basically, let's think about this a little bit more deeply. Does the square root of a negative number make any sense? And in order to answer that question, I'm going to insert another blank page here. And I'm going to ask you a couple questions. So think about the square root of 16, right? We know that's 4. But it can actually be square root of 16. The question this is really asking us is, what number times itself would give me the number inside? The actual answer could be 4. It could also be negative 4, because 4 times itself would give you 16. But if you took negative 4 and multiplied it by itself, in other words, negative 4 times negative 4, you would also get a positive 16, because a negative times a negative gives us a positive. However, now that we know what this square root symbol is actually asking us, let's go back and think a little bit more deeply about putting a negative value inside of a square root. Let's say I asked you for the square root of negative 16. What would that be? Initially, I've seen a lot of students do this, and I think I probably did it at first when I was first encountering this. Initially, I thought, okay, well, it would be negative 4, right? But that doesn't work, because imagine taking negative 4 and multiplying it by itself. What do you get? You get a positive 16. That's not what we're after, though. We're after a negative 16. Well, okay, what if you tried it with, 4? What does 4 times 4 give us? Oops. You get the idea. What does 4 times 4 give us? That still is going to give us a positive 16. That's a terrible 1. But that's still going to give us a positive 16. There really isn't any number, if you really think about it, there is no number that you can put in here that's going to be the same in both places that's going to give you a negative. Therefore, there is no solution to this this part. There is no solution. Unless you've already covered imaginary numbers, in which case it's imaginary something or other. But for the context of this problem, the answer they want is they want you to kind of understand that the square root of a negative number doesn't really make sense. So therefore, there isn't actually any real solution to part B. And you can kind of see that here. There's nothing that we could put in both of these brackets that would be the same in both brackets that would get us to a negative value. Because if we're multiplying something by itself, we're inherently going to get a positive value out. There isn't any way to, unless the signs are different, in which case that violates the concept that they need to be the same thing in both brackets. So there is no real solution. There's an imaginary solution, but we haven't gotten to that yet. So anyway, that is the solution to this problem. Alright, I think that is all for this video. I hope you have enjoyed it. If so, please like and subscribe. Also, consider hiring me as your tutor. I'd be happy to help you with stuff like this. For more on that, check out my website at www.tutoringbyroger.com. Thanks again for watching, and have a great rest of your day.